So, today we're digging into a pretty radical idea from the 20th century that, honestly, feels like it could have been written this morning. It's this wild prediction that technology isn't just changing things. It's following a simple, unstoppable logic that's going to tear down our social order and create a brand new revolutionary class from the very people it left behind.
It all starts with this one sentence. This is the key to the whole thing. The theory kicks off with a really simple, almost obvious point. The better our tech gets, the fewer actual people we need to get the job done. That one idea, well, that's the engine for the entire social upheaval we're about to walk through. So let's take a look at how that engine really works.
All right, part one, the automation engine. The logic here is simple, but boy, is it powerful.
According to this theory, it all boils down to a simple three-step process, right? Step one, the main goal of the system is to maximize profit. Step two, the easiest way to do that is to cut your biggest expense, which is almost always paying people. And step three, for centuries, the best tool for cutting labor has been technology. This isn't some accident or a bug in the system, it's the system working exactly as designed.
And if you think that sounds like a modern-day critique, you got to see the original source. It spells it right out. It says capitalists will just keep following their, quote, age-old logic to make as much money as possible and pay the people as little as possible. So in this view, automation isn't really a choice. It's just the inevitable outcome of that one simple rule.
So part two then. If this automation engine is always on, always churning, what's the first thing that gets caught in the gears? The theory says it's one specific group, the traditional working class.
The theory uses that classic term, the proletariat. We're talking about the folks who sell their time and their labor for a wage. You know, the factory workers, the builders, basically the backbone of the entire industrial economy. And they are smack in the crosshairs of this automation engine.
And the outcome it predicts is pretty staggering. It's not just saying that work gets harder or wages go down. No, it's arguing that the class itself gets completely hollowed out, that it shrinks from being the vast majority of the population to just a tiny fraction of what it used to be.
And the logic here is just brutal and direct. As the tech gets better and better, you just need fewer and fewer people to operate those machines. And this creates this really frightening zero-sum game, right? For every single job that gets automated away, the class of the unemployables gets bigger.
Okay, part three, the new social order. So if a huge part of society is being hollowed out, what rises up to take its place? Well, the theory argues that what we get is a new, really polarized social order, one that's split between two completely new kinds of classes.
On one side, you get the technocrats. And don't just think of a skilled worker. We're talking about a very small, hyper-specialized elite. These are the people designing the AI, building the robots, and maintaining the automated systems that are making all the other jobs obsolete. Their specialized knowledge, that's the new form of power.
And what's really crucial to understand here is that the theory sees this group as something fundamentally different. They're not just high-paid workers. As the text puts it, they are too specialized to be identified as a proletarian. They're an entirely new category of person, a class so essential to the new system that the source just calls them vital.
And on the other side of this huge divide, a much, much larger group that the theory calls the LumpenProletariat. Now, these aren't just people who are unemployed and looking for their next job. This is a class of people who are pushed entirely outside of the economic system with no way back in. They are, for all intents and purposes, permanently unemployable.
The theory draws this direct and, honestly, pretty chilling line between the two groups. The old working class doesn't just, disappear. Its members get pushed downwards. They're forced to, quote, swell the ranks of the unemployable, creating a new, alienated majority that's structurally locked out of the entire system. So let's just put it side by side. This is the new world that the theory predicts. On one side, you've got a tiny, vital elite of specialists, and on the other, a massive and growing majority of people with no real economic purpose. Society isn't a pyramid anymore. It's more like a dumbbell, with a shrinking middle just getting squeezed out of existence.
Which brings us to our final section, the unlikely revolution, a new source of power. And this leads to the most provocative question of all. If the traditional workforce has lost all its power, where could a revolution possibly come from?
I mean, this is the real puzzle, right? For over a century, pretty much all theories of revolution were built on the power of the organized working class.
So if automation is basically wiping that class out, does the whole idea of revolution just die with it?
Well, the theory's answer is a hard no. In fact, it argues that the potential for revolution doesn't disappear at all. It just shifts. Power moves away from that shrinking working class and falls directly into the hands of the growing LumpenProletariat, the unemployable class that's destined to become the new majority.
But why them? The logic is pretty chilling. Their power comes from their total alienation from the system. See, a traditional worker might be afraid of losing their job, but this new class, they've already lost their economic role. They have literally nothing left to lose and absolutely no stake in a system that's already cast them aside. And that desperation, the theory concludes, is exactly what makes them the new engine for radical change.
Which leaves us with a massive question for today. This whole thing was written decades ago, long before we were all having these debates about AI and automation. But as we watch these technologies accelerate at a pace that's just insane, you have to wonder, was this just some forgotten fringe theory or a disturbingly accurate blueprint for the 21st century?